Yes, folks, it's time for the news edition again, the world edition, and definitely glad to be here. I believe Steve Rao is actually in New York City and doing a lot of great things in that area. I think we're expecting him back on either Wednesday or possibly later on in the week. But yours truly will try to keep things down and try to keep things rolling in the sense of what's going on in the world. One of the things that I've learned about is that, definitely that whole Russian invasion is going on and things along that line. And that is definitely some very sad news. As a matter of fact, one of the updates, according to the UN, is that the Russia's invasion has displaced 25% of Ukraine's population. Just imagine that no matter where you are in the world, one fourth of your population being displaced by this war and all along those lines. So that is definitely something that is going on and a lot of people are paying attention to. As a matter of fact, over 3.4 million refugees have fled Ukraine since the Russian invasion began. And that is also from the UN as well. And in a major speech on Monday morning, so that was earlier today, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned that Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine could also set back. And a lot of times we don't think about what it can do in the sense of the global community. I mean, I know some people are worried about the nuclear threat and all of that, but they are also saying it could set back the climate agenda and spark a global food crisis. That's right, because one of the things we don't think about is that both Ukraine and Russia are major suppliers of wheat. And we do know that wheat is important in bread and a number of other things in that regards. And food prices are rising around the world as supplies are cut off. So on the energy front, Europe is speeding up the its transition to clean energy in order to reduce its dependence on Russian natural gas. But in the U.S., many policymakers are showing a renewed enthusiasm for oil and gas development, including exporting more liquefied natural gas to Europe. As major economies pursue an all of the above strategy to replace Russian fossil fuel, short term measures might create long term fossil fuel dependence and close the window to 1.5 degrees, Guterres said. Countries could become so consumed by the immediate fossil fuel supply gap that they neglect or kneecap policies to cut fossil fuel use. And he is also adding that this is madness. The planet is already warmed by about 1.1 Celsius above pre industrial levels, and the latest research shows that 1.5 Celsius threshold could be breached between 2030 and 2035 based on emissions trend. And Guterres said the science is clear and so is the math. We are sleepwalking to climate catastrophe. So I'm going to bring in a person that knows a lot about data analysis and things along those lines. And we've got some other guests that are going to come on as well. But I did want to hear what Chris has got to say about this, because I do see we've got Nick here, and I think Sasha is going to join, and he may even have some new news from what's going on in Ukraine and all of that. But Chris, what are some of your thoughts about this? Because, a lot of times, and I know that being a ex-military person, and folks sometimes don't think about the greater consequences that can happen even in these kind of war situations as to what it can do with our climate. So when I saw that article, it really caught my attention that yes, definitely we have Russia invading Ukraine and all of that, and definitely a lot of people are afraid of how that could lead into World War III and all along those lines. Even though I've heard some other people be very speculative that they don't think that it will necessarily go to that far of an extreme. But I was just wondering, what are your thoughts as a data analysis? And I know that we're looking at doing a show that deals with data and all of that. When you hear these kind of folks that are looking at it from a greater kind of viewpoint than just the two countries warring and all of those lines and everything. Because, like I said, I don't know that I had necessarily thought about the fact that a lot of wheat does come from Russia and everything. We've got a lot of wheat in parts of the U.S. breadbasket and all of that. I'm thinking about places like Kansas and places like that. But apparently, we're importing a lot of our wheat from Russia and other places. And definitely they're doing that in Europe, and that's driving up food prices. And this is a concern on the global market. But what is your thoughts on that as a data analysis person?
Well, I think, and this is something that I'm hoping that I'll get comments from the listeners or the viewers here, is that I think the reason that we import wheat from Russia and from other areas is because basically we can't grow wheat year round. I think that if we do that, it would basically destroy the nutrients in the soil. I think what has to happen is that those wheat fields have to remain fallow for a period of time, and in that period of time, we import the wheat from other areas to fill that gap that we would need normally from U.S. produced wheat. But farmlands, and again, comments can come in from wherever. As far as I know, farmlands are they're shrinking very rapidly. The farming generation is going away. They don't want to get up at dark 30 in the morning and go out and plow fields and do whatever they don't want to do that. So what's happening is that a lot of this farmland is being sold off to developments, and then those developments are basically, and I really shouldn't say it. I live in a development, but basically developments are destroying the land. They're destroying the ecosystems that provide that, including trees and whatever else you have to go along with that. It takes 20 years, 25 years to get those trees back. So it's those types of areas we're talking about. Now, when we talk about climate change, and I did do a study on this. I pulled down National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, is a great place to get climate data. A lot of climate data there. Well, I pulled it down and I did some predictions, some different forecasting based on different models, and I read this book. It's by William Poundstone called "How to Predict Everything." Literally, it's a book. In fact, the paperback is fantastic because the cover says how to predict everything, and everything is cut off at the G. So it's like, it's not, it's kind of like, so what happens is that you can predict anything based on what they call a 95% confidence level. I remember I was and I don't want to even mention the name because I'm not sure if she actually said it, but somebody in Congress said that we only have 12 years left before humanity is extinct.
No, I've heard that. Actually had a guest on one of my shows that made a similar prediction. They might have even said less than 12 years, but it was on one of our news shows and everything. I definitely want to hear more of what you're saying, but I also want to bring in just really quickly, Sasha Starr. Sasha is with us, and I did have a quick question for him, but not to cut you off totally and everything,
go ahead, man.
Chris and everything. But, one of the things that the U.S. prides itself on is this notion of separation of church and state. And a lot of other countries try to say that they have a similar kind of viewpoint as well. But I was seeing that apparently the church that is known in Russia, the Russian Orthodox Church, is back in the war and all along those lines. The article that I said was that since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the leaders of the Russian Orthodox Church have defended Russia's actions and blamed the conflict, of course, on the West. So Patriarch Kirill's support for the invasion of a country where millions of people belong to his own church has led critics to conclude that Orthodox leadership has become little more than an arm of the state, and that this is a role it usually plays. And they were saying in this article that the reality is much more complicated because the relationship between the Russian church and the state has undergone very historical transformations, not the least of in the last century and all of that. But as one that came from that neighborhood and came from that area, and they did talk about some of the early history, like in the early 1700s, Tsar Peter the Great instituted reforms for the greater control of the church, part of his attempt to make Russia more like Protestant Europe. But I'm just wondering your thoughts about the role of the church, and particularly the Orthodox Church, in this conflict. And are you surprised at their stance and everything being one from that area? Sasha, on to you.
Okay, again, everything is in the history. History gives answers to everything, including this one. Remember that the religion in the West existed in some form or another well before the emperors, tsars, or whoever it was were ruling in the West. If you start with the early Christianity, the Christianity was really people's religion, which Emperor Constantine, made it into the law that from now it's becoming official religion of ancient Rome. Same thing were happening with other forms of Christian religions, whether it's Protestant or Calvinism or just almost anything. In Russia, it's completely different history. Uh, Russian people were pagans, and the emperor or Tsar Vladimir Monomach was Tsar um, of ancient Kiev, Rus. He wanted to get Christianity into his people because he believed that it would be easier to rule if he is not just ruling as a Tsar but also supported by religion. And there was a story, I don't know how much is true or not, that he was testing different religions, and this Greek Orthodox religion was the most suitable to him, and that's what he selected. So people were fighting this for well over 200 years, and slowly, through very vicious and aggressive tactics of the rulers, finally that type of religion, the Russian Orthodox religion, was finally prevailed in Russia. So because of that, it was always the Tsar who was a first, and religion who was subordinated to him. In fact, it was one of his instruments to rule the country. Nothing ever changed in Russia. It's the same thing today. The Russian Orthodox Church is just another instrument in the hands of Mr. Putin.
Yeah, it sounds like that. And I was noticing that they were even making it part of the argument that it's supposed to be part of their identity. Because the article I was reading was saying that although 75 to 70% of the Russians consider themselves Orthodox, only a small percentage are active in church life. And apparently, this patriarch Kirill has sought to quote unquote rechurch society by asserting that Russian Orthodoxy is central to Russian identity, patriotism, and cohesion, and therefore a strong Russian state. He has also created a highly centralized church bureaucracy that mirrors Putin's and stifles dissenting voices. So it sounds like he might be kind of borrowing the playbook from Putin and all of that in the way that he is trying to run the church, or this particular large church, and all along those lines. Chris, I don't know if you've got any thoughts about that, because I know even here in the United States, we oftentimes will see the evangelicals, and some of those that can be very active in their support of different things, lend their voice, and sometimes it seems like they may have a stronger voice than maybe even their population of the actual greater population and all of that. But I don't know if you have any thoughts about, as one that was in the military, about the role of church and state there in Russia and what you observed.
Um, well, my mother was Russian Orthodox.
Okay.
She converted to Roman Catholic, but when my grandfather died, we went to a Russian Orthodox church, and the entire service was in Russian. So it was an interesting, for us as kids. I was in high school at the time, and basically the priest said, just when I tell you to stand, stand. When I tell you to sit, sit. When I tell you to kneel, kneel. Because the whole thing was in Russian, and and then my mother, at one point, I was thinking about becoming a priest, Roman Catholic priest, and she goes, "Why don't you become a Russian Orthodox priest?" And I said, "What's the difference?" She goes, "You can get married." And I said, "Really, really?" I see, and it was like, wow, that doesn't sound too bad. So kind of get married and do the church thing, but it was anyways, I didn't do that. But the bottom line is that there's my mother could speak Russian. She could speak Czech and she could speak Russian, although she never taught us Russian. But the reason that she could speak Russian was because my grandfather, her father, was very big into the Russian church. So they would go to the to the services, and that's how she basically learned Russian. She would go through the church services. So it's interesting how the church actually kind of builds that language into the different areas. Now, a lot of people say, well, yeah, but the Roman Catholics were big on Latin. Yeah, and Latin was really big at that point at one point in time, but now of course they've changed that and they've gone into English. But the Latin is still kind of there at little bits of the Mass. And the same thing with the Russian Orthodox. If you go to Russian Orthodox Church here in the United States, you're going to hear Russian. That's what they're going to speak. So it's an interesting, cultural perspective on religion itself and how it perpetuates that culture.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, I see that we've got Nick with us as well. I'm glad that Nick has joined the conversation. One of the things I was curious about, and I'd love to hear Nick's take on this, is and both Nick and Sasha, because I know both of y'all are involved in the financial space, not as much me, and I don't know how much Chris is involved in that space, but we are seeing that apparently this type of money that is very popular or is becoming more popular is aiding the war effort in the Ukraine. So apparently crypto is having a major impact. So Deputy Ukrainian Minister of Digital Transformation, Alex Bornikov, speaks on how the usage of cryptocurrency is aiding in the Ukrainian war efforts against Russia. So apparently crypto is having a major impact on a positive side, on the side of the freedom fighters there in Ukraine and all of that. So they were saying that, response time is crucial, the fiat currencies and the fiat funds that exist. And our National Bank of Ukraine created a fiat fund, but with the time and speed of regular, like a bank system, it was impossible to finance important things for the army. So I think they're playing a role to give this flexibility when it's really needed to respond really quickly to deliver the army with their required supplies. So for those of you that are into the financial world, are you surprised that crypto is playing an effort in this and all of that? Definitely, they were saying that the Ministry of Defense formed a request. It's basically companies that deliver those goods, and some of them accept crypto. So some of them don't or don't accept crypto at all, but they are definitely looking at using crypto as part of their efforts to raise funds and all along those lines. So, Nick, it's on you. Are you surprised about the use of crypto in a war effort?
No, I think Zelensky made it an official currency or something like that. But Mark, I'm not a believer in crypto. Okay, I mean, big time not believer. But remember, on our financial show, which I encourage people to go to, that Sasha does, we said we weren't a big believer in AMC and GameStop. This is when they were trading high flyers, right, Sasha? Where are they now? They're down in the toilet. Okay, crypto is the same thing. It's a toilet waiting to be flushed. It's just a matter of time. Here's what it really is involved in crypto. It's probably one of the biggest frauds that are out there right now. In other words, if you want to get involved in a fraudulent transaction, get involved in a crypto transaction. Here's the reason I can say that with authority. There's now published cases on people that, especially on the internet, saying, oh, come invest in crypto. Give me 3,000. I'll triple your money. They give them 3,000. There goes your money because somebody heard about crypto. Here's another reason it's a fraud. Go look at all the people that are the recent billionaires that are engaged in creating these cryptocurrency. Look, if money goes in and a billionaire comes out and that's your money going in, guess what? It's not going anywhere except for that crypto fraudulent person. So the only thing that bothers me about crypto is why hasn't the West shut that fraudulent transaction down? I mean, what it is, Mark, it's a way that you can escape the tax system by moving funds without being caught. I mean, that's it. It's just a big tax scheme, but I have no idea why the West hasn't shut that big fraud down.
And Nick, I would
I have a bit
media.
I have a Bitcoin.
Nick, I would like to add something.
Yeah, please add something.
Why is there always talking about $3,000?
Yeah.
Because they believe that most people, believe it or not, can scrap together $1,000 one way or another.
Yeah.
So if you have $1,000, it's fairly easy to get loan for $2,000.
Right.
And you use $1,000 as a sort of a guarantee. And then once you have all packaged, 1,000 plus 2 that you borrowed, then you can send this $3,000 to a fraudster who will play for a while that you are doing so well or so on. Oops! Oh, you know what? I have a bad news for you. Apparently, the the currency went down, the crypto, and your funds are all being depleted. Okay,
It's all about greed, guys. It's all about greed. GRED.
But Chris, the thing is, I mean, it's it's really an unregulated security. I mean, the SEC should shut it down. Investment in enterprise with expectation of profits derived solely by the effort of others is a security. Why the SEC hasn't shut down this big fraudulent
I'll tell you why.
I don't know.
Because the people who are operating crypto, they are running out of time, because indeed SEC and government, they all have to go after it. So they are maximizing. If you see all advertising, go to the Super Bowl, go to all events, it's crypto.
Oh, right.
Well, I mean, there's even stadiums that have crypto in the title. I think the stadium in Los Angeles is now crypto.
They're greasing probably the palms of people in Washington, D.C. And they're greasing the palms, as you can see, of the people in the ad space as well. But come on, Sasha, we invited these people on that are, quote, crypto experts onto your show. Has anybody said anything tangible that would get any serious normal person to invest in that trash?
But I've got another. No, nobody showed up.
By the way, we have a standing offer. If you think you're a crypto expert and you want to come on Sasha's show, come on, baby. Come get some, and you'll find out how bad this thing really is.
But I got another question for you, which is along those same lines, and this is for everybody on the panel, which is there is another thing that has become very popular. Well, actually, there are a couple of them, but one of them is this thing called the metaverse. It's kind of like you go off into space and you get to create your own towns, your own villages, and all of that, and you get to do it in the kind of cyber world and all of that. There are some of them that have become very popular. I know that there's one called STEM City. There's a couple of other ones that exist and everything along those lines. Yep. And there's even a new app, which I think I've heard recently is Russian owned, that is somewhat in the metaverse called Connect Club. So I was just wondering, coming back to your regulation question, Nick, and everything, is why are we not regulating these if they're coming from countries that we claim are?
Let me say something from a cybersecurity perspective. Let me say something.
Yes.
When you get something free, when you get an app and that app is free, and they go, "Hey, get into this app. It's free." Right. You know what the product is? The product is you.
Right.
You're the product. So basically, what happens is they are going to get what they need from you. Every time you play SimCity, they're going to be gathering data on you, man. Every time
they're figuring ways to sell you stuff,
and that's what's going to happen. And you're going to get ads for crud that you never believe. See, you want you put anything in there in SimCity about crypto? Guess what? You're going to get crypto ads. You're going to get tons of crypto ads. Absolutely. You put anything in a porn? You put a porn thing in there? You're going to get porn ads. You put. I mean, they just love. As a cybersecurity guy, I love people that sit there and go, but the app is free. It's not free, man. You're giving yourself away. You want to do that? Have at it. Tailgun Charlie. I have an app called Tailgun Charlie. Do you know what I'm getting now? I'm getting ads for models, World War II plastic models. And I'm sitting back going, well, Chris, are you happy now? You're playing Tailgun Charlie for free. You're shooting all these German planes. But what are you getting? You're getting all these things for plastic models. Super duper.
Well, and I've got another question for both of y'all that deals with the world situation and the world population. Because apparently during a 2-hour call on Friday morning, President Biden warned Chinese President Xi Jinping that supporting the Russia's invasion of Ukraine would have severe consequences for Beijing. First off, what are these consequences? What are we going to do? Are we worried about the Russians getting support from China? And do we really think that there is any teeth to what we might be able to do in the sense of kind of like going up against Xi Jinping and all of that? Sasha, you've been following the war. Are you worried about the Chinese jumping in the middle of the war and kind of lending support to the Russians and all of that? And if so, what can the U.S. do other than give some lip service and some words to Xi Jinping about what we say we're going to do?
Okay, number one, Russia already asked Syria to send some troops to help Russia. And Syrians assembled 16,000 people who are willing for $300 plus 70 maidens in a better world. Go for it. And I don't know if they will go to a better world they don't need money. I don't know why they're giving them $300 because there's no money required in a better world. But
Cryptocurrency.
they
They're
put
getting $300 a
no,
crypto.
actually, you know what? Actually, is they canceled that. You know why? Because the Syrian soldiers they're fighting in sandals, and in Ukraine in the march to fight in sandals, it's quite a challenge. So they have to equip them with enough military shoes and so on. And they don't have any military shoes for the Syrians. So now they ask China to provide this military shoes so they could dress Syrians properly. So far everything's on hold. China is not supplying the shoes because they're busy with the coronavirus issues and so on, and talking to United States and so on. So they ask Russia to wait a little bit with that, and in the meantime, Syrians waiting to be shipped to Ukraine. But so far, no avail.
Oh, jeez.
Apparently, they're also worrying about a plane that crashed as well, because apparently they just had a plane that crashed.
Oh, yeah.
in
China, yeah.
as well.
182 killed.
Do you know which airline that was?
Yeah, Chinese Eastern Airlines.
Okay, because there's one that's actually affiliated with Delta, but I don't know if it's Chinese Eastern or Chinese.
Let's see,
Southern.
Delta, don't even leave the airport, right? Is that what it stands for?
No,
Is that what that
never
stands
leave
for?
the airport.
Yeah, but it's not very good news for Boeing because
Was it a Boeing plane?
It was Boeing 737, so their shares.
Another Boeing 737. Hey, Chris, on that. I mean, this is again, I'm speculating.
Yeah, right. It was a Boeing.
737. What happened was that some of the countries didn't want to pay Boeing the extra money for the training to work the system. Okay, and it was a very complex system. So you had pilots who really didn't know how to operate these planes that had very sophisticated ways to turn them on and off, and so they ended up crashing. Is there any credence to the fact that?
So I talked to a pilot who actually flies the 737,
okay, right.
and they had the same issues that everyone else had. But there's a cultural issue here, and I think I read this, and I think I read this in one Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers or something like that. But basically, they had this plane basically crashed, and it crashed with Korean pilot, Korean co-pilot, Korean navigator, and they were basically they crashed the airplane. And what happened was that the Korean pilot was tired, the command pilot was tired, and the co-pilot kept saying, "Hey, look. Run out of fuel, run out of fuel, run out of fuel." And the guy said, "No, we got it. And they ended up wrecking because the cultural says you cannot challenge that pilot. Right. So unlike the U.S. where the co-pilot said, "I got it," and he would pull it out of there. So, I mean, it's a situation where and you're right, it's a training issue because I have a friend of mine with one of the major airlines that flew 737s. They had the same problems that everyone else had, but they are much better trained. They have training. They have simulator training. That's required by FAA. I mean, let me tell you something. I'm going through holy Hades right now with the FAA, trying to get myself for general aviation pilot because I have a heart issue, and that heart issue I've had for like 30 years. And every year I go through this. FAA wants you medically qualified, and they want you flight qualified to be able to fly that aircraft. And they push it very, very hard, Nick.
But Chris, are they still being as restrictive? Because I actually had a friend that was running, and part of it was during the pandemic. I don't know that they're still doing it, but he was running a school to teach people, primarily minorities, but not exclusively, how to fly planes and all of that.
Yeah.
But I do remember that they were saying that there was a serious shortage of pilots that were out there, and I want to say that shortage has probably even been accelerated, and that was across the board. It had nothing to do with race, gender, or anything. It was
not
just
anymore.
The planes.
I belong to AOPA, the Airline Owners and Pilots Association. I get a magazine every month, and they post the pilot vacancies, those types of things. Right. And no, yes, during the pandemic it was there, but no longer. The pilot, there's no longer a pilot shortage. They're coming out from everywhere. Air Force, Navy, their pilots coming in. The interesting thing about it is, though, a lot of people think, oh, you're a Navy pilot, you're automatically into airlines. No, when you're flying a two-engine jet aircraft supersonic, it's a heck of an issue to be able to fly 737. I mean, there's quite a difference there in control.
Is it harder or easier to fly the 737?
Much harder because you're
fly the 737.
Oh no! Oh, to fly the 737 is it's fly by wire, so it's not too bad. but there's a lot more. Like with a jet, you turn, it turns immediately. Right. With a 737, you turn, it kind of turns and turns
slow.
and turns.
Sure,
Yeah.
right. It's different.
Yeah. So it's a different area.
Different avionics. Well, the thing is, Chris, if you can't get certified here, there's openings in Southern Chinese Airlines.
That's right.
Over there. And by the way, it's Sasha and you, Nick. Like I said, I need to get more into stocks and everything. But apparently, the Boeing stock dropped early Monday by 8% in a pre-market trading because of this crash. So apparently, the stock was definitely tanking because of the crash and because of Boeing's already bad reputation.
Well, they're
some of the other crashes.
They're assuming it's mechanical. It could be pilot error, which a lot of them are pilot error at the end of the day. And I think that's really what happened to 737 MAX, is that from my reading through all the garbage, a lot of it was the sophistication of the piloting needed additional training and equipment, which was going to cost a nominal amount, $40,000. But some of these airlines didn't want to pay it, and they relied heavily on their pilots' own intuition. And unfortunately, some of it's counterintuitive, and you end up with 2 crashes and a bunch of dead people. I mean, and it could have been solved for a very nominal amount. I could be wrong. This is the reason you look for some subject matter expert to come in and tell you why you're wrong. And so we invite the subject matter expert on. It's just like on crypto. Sasha and I could be wrong. Maybe crypto is the greatest thing. So we invite subject matter experts on all the time, purported. They've shown up all the time, and they've got destroyed every time they've shown up because it's like this. It's like I'm the Wizard of Oz, and oh no, don't pull the curtain behind me and show me that there's nothing there. And that's the name of the game. Now, speaking about the Wizard of Oz and Ukraine, Sasha, I know we're going to have some specials on Ukraine later on today. What is going on over there? The problem with the media, when I get this, I'm getting different reports, really more analysts with different bias from the East, which, by the way, the minute what I call the apologists get in, the first thing they talk about it's America's fault because look at Iraq. In other words, it's America's fault. Look at Vietnam. America's bad. Look at Iraq and Vietnam. Now, these are usually Chinese apologists, but I never know if they're Chinese because when you're through Facebook, they could be Russians trying to influence Americans, literally. So when you're listening to your quote Facebook friends that are purportedly Chinese, they could be Russians trying to persuade Americans that America's bad and Russia's good. Because look, America invaded Iraq, America invaded Libya, America invaded Vietnam, America's bad, Russia, and so let's ignore Ukraine. So what are your thoughts on that, Sasha?
Well, there is reality, and there is all what surrounds a reality, and which is nothing but noise. And depends on your preference, you select the noise which is more appealing to you and listen to it. Reality is that, can you imagine that you get up in the morning and you learn that, let's say, a city of Omaha just doesn't exist anymore. There's no Omaha on your map. There's nothing really, rubbles of some kind. Same thing happened in the city of Mariupol. The city has been absolutely wiped out from Earth. There is no more city of Mariupol. However, even now, when Russia issued ultimatum to give up Mariupol, Ukrainians' reply was to go where the Russian warship was advised to go.
Mm-hmm.
Three letters word in Russian. That means something. And so the fight resumed. See, Mariupol, why there is such a fierce fighting for that? Because that's a city belongs to Donetsk region. So if Putin wants to, as a piece of negotiations, obviously, to have Donetsk Oblast, all of it, not part of it that he controlled already from 2014, but all of it. That includes Mariupol. Never mind that it's a 500,000 population. It's right on the Azov Sea. And also through Mariupol, if you have that, then you connect into Kherson that you already have and so on. Then you control all south of Ukraine. So there is a very fierce fighting even now as we speak, and Ukrainians are sending them some fresh contingent, but it's quite dangerous because obviously you need more arms to around Kiev. So obviously you're sacrificing security of Kiev to holding Mariupol, but holding Mariupol apparently become politically so important, and just incredible bravery of people who are fighting against all this hypersonic missiles and so on, and they are going essentially for almost sure death, but they're not going to give up. That's something normal people cannot really appreciate what it is. But people who know history, especially of Second World War, they know what it is. Now, speaking of hypersonic, um, if it's true, indeed, then West NATO they should be in a big troubles because
Yeah.
that means that this it's 5 times the sounds of
Right.
speed of the sound. So essentially, Russia can destroy a major European city from their own territory. They don't even have to invade Poland or Germany or anybody else. They don't need invasions anymore. They, from their own territory, they can take. They're fairly accurate, and they can bomb. You need Berlin, go ahead. Warsaw, fine. Rome, no problem. Just almost any city because the distance that they can shoot at and very accurately is 1,200 miles. If you take the map of
Right.
Europe, you can see how far 1,200 miles will go.
You can hit every city.
Yeah, but they could do that with cruise missiles, Sasha. They need hypersonic for that.
Yeah.
Cruise
But
missiles are napping the earth
they're
firing.
so fast. I think we cannot shoot them down.
So they might be fast, and I
No,
had
it's
a
much.
question.
It's. I'm not a military expert, but it's much more deadly than cruise missile.
Yeah.
A cruise missile is not
It's faster
nearly
than cruise missiles, not
Faster.
necessarily
not.
more deadly.
Okay, first of all, it's several times faster, so you
It's
cannot.
3,000 miles per hour. So yes, it's
pretty
tons
fast.
faster.
How much did
Tons
you
faster.
say?
You said
It could
3,000.
go as fast as 3,000 miles per hour. That's
Okay,
correct.
that's five times the speed of
That's
sound.
right. 5 times the speed of sound.
So
Right.
U.S. experts on CNN, what I've heard, it's impossible to. Plus, they maneuver while they're flying. They also can maneuver and evade the upcoming missile. So apparently, it's very difficult to detect them.
Yes.
It's almost impossible to shoot them down. So
Yes.
the only remedy is to shoot the where from they were shoot at.
That's right. The
Whether it's
originator.
it could be aircraft, it could be
Yes.
ship, or just anything.
Same
But
thing with mobile ICBMs. They're very
but
they're slower, but it's
Yeah,
tough to hit the targeting.
But in order to do that, you have to hit the Russian-based targets.
Yes.
And it's not easy. And
Not
it's
easy.
easy.
Oh, Sasha, at noon we should have somebody from Kharkov and also from Kiev. These are two businessmen that are actually live in Kiev and live in Kharkov. The other guy's been on before. I'm not sure if he's going to be on again. The person from Kiev is new, and he owns a business in Kiev, and apparently it's a tech business. And
Is
we're going
that
to
for
get his
the media
perspective
show,
on
or
what's
is that for
going
the financial
That's
show
the
at
media.
11?
That's the media show. At 11, we have Jeanette Skinner, who's
Okay.
the congressman. She's running for Congress on it. She's going to be discussing health care related issues.
Hey, Nick,
In other
I got
words,
a
it's going to be
question.
health
Quick
and-
question for you. This is for everybody once again, because I was reading an article. Actually, I was reading it over the weekend because I've actually been doing some data research as well, trying to be like in my inner Chris and all along
The
those
inner
lines
Chris.
and everything. And one of the things that I was curious about was, if we have this World War III, which hopefully we won't have, but if we have it, there are some people that are thinking that Nick, do you have any land in Brazil or in Panama? Because apparently that's where the safest areas is going to be, is like around Latin America and maybe some of Central America, but definitely Latin America. So I was wondering if you have any land in either
I've
Honduras
looked
or
at
Brazil or any of those places.
Okay, near Buenos Aires, Uruguay, there's Montevideo. There's a great place to go to. It's pretty inexpensive, and reportedly, it's going to be the last surviving during World War III. So I've got some plane tickets to go over there as soon as this blast off. And when Hurricane Andrew, which is a long time ago, actually hit Miami, I was living in Boca. I actually was the last flight out of Miami. Seriously, like the last flight out of Miami, heading to Scotland for a vacation as Hurricane Andrew slammed into Miami.
And it did.
And timing is everything, as you know, in life. So make sure you get your plane tickets, go to either Buenos Aires or Montevideo. They're real close by. Safe place to be because they're off the radar scope from China, the U.S., and Russia, and enjoy the weather, which should change dramatically after World War III. So
before we go on, Mark, I wanted to finish my answer on that way long time ago on that data thing, where I said that a congressional representative had stated that in 12 years we will no longer be on the face of the earth. Right. If you go to William Poundstone's How to Predict Everything, basically 12 years was only half the story. That's the low side of the 95% confidence interval. The high side is 18,000 years. So it's somewhere between, Mark, 12 years and 18,000 years that we will be extinct from the face of the earth. So somewhere in that between 12 years and 18,000. So all they're saying is 12 years because that's the big deal here. Also, this 1.5 degree difference and all that, I've done several models on this. Yeah, you could say 2035, but you can also say 2050. You can also say 2100. So there's a lot of different models that bring up these different areas. This World War III thing, we had a discussion on it this weekend at a family dinner, and they said, "Oh yeah, Putin's going to press the button. Putin's going to do this and do that." I said, "Putin's not going to press any button. Let me tell you something. The minute he starts talking about, I'm going to fire missiles into the United States, he's dead. There's going to be one reasonable person that's going to sit there and say and shoot him in the head. He's done. I mean, I'm telling you, when the Russians and if the U.S. were to get in this war, if the U.S. were to say, enough of this bull crap, we're going in and we're going to drive them past the Dnieper, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Sasha, the Dnieper River. We're going to push them past that, and we're going to use that as our red line. You cross that river, you're dead. And I'll tell you something, he'd back down, man. I have two pieces of good news for you. One is that I was on a friend's show. I may be trying to talk them to come into the network at some point or another, but I've been on their show a few times as a co-host there that's actually doing it on YouTube. It's called The Community Connection or something like that. I know it's got connection in the title and all of that, but she's had all kinds of conversations, everything from reparations to yesterday was actually around wellness, because she had a plant wellness person, and she also had a medium on, and the medium actually, I think the medium said it was going to be 2332, because mediums are those people that claim that they can predict your life and the life of the world and all of that. So as they put it, it was like 300 400 years. So definitely all of us will probably be gone unless there's some miracle of science that keeps us around for 300 or 500 years. But it definitely sounds like it will all be a thing of naught, because they were saying, I think 2332, and the other person may have had some connections to Chandler as well, and they were talking more like the 3000s. So definitely both of them were saying we've got hundreds of years to go, at least on this planet, and all along those lines. And to your other point, Chris, on a show that we do air here, Billy Graham Jr., not the televangelist, but another Billy that we do his show on regularly and everything. He actually had a guest on, and that guest, I think, was in either South Dakota or Kansas, but she works at the place that presses the button. So she's in charge of pressing our nuclear buttons and all of that. And I do remember, because we were having a conversation offline and all of that, that she also agreed that there are probably people in Russia and other places that are in charge of pressing that button that
one, it would probably never get to them, and two, they'd be shaking their head like, "Nope, I'm not doing that." And
Let me give, and Mark, let me give you an example. So Saddam Hussein, let's go back to Iraq, right?
right,
So the whole thing with this Iraq invasion was that there were weapons of mass destruction. I remember I was in the intelligence community at that time, and I said, there are no weapons of mass destruction. And people said, oh, no, there's weapons of mass destruction. I said, look, Saddam Hussein, why would he have something in his country that can kill him? That made no sense to me whatsoever. One drop of that in his coffee, whatever else, he's dead. Why would he have that available to people that hate his guts to be able to use against him? He's not going to do that. It's an as needed basis. He's going to use it against his enemies, and that's it. There is no storage or inventory or anything else. And that's the same thing with nuclear weapons or anything else. Putin is not going to do something that is going to kill him. He's nuts, but he's not that nuts. Even adult, So
Sasha, along those same lines, like I said, I met this woman for the first time. I think Billy's show, as a matter of fact, I know it's on Thursday. So I met this woman for the first time, and she was definitely saying that she knows that she wouldn't press that button. But are there enough folks in Russia that might be crazy enough to press the button should they be given the order and all of that? Because she was definitely thinking that if it was to happen, it would probably, one, never get to her, and two, she would probably have some serious moral or other kind of things that would cause her to hesitate to do that and all of along those lines. But I was wondering, because you have said a couple of times on this show that you're not the biggest fan of some of the Russian people and some of the environment of Russia as it is now and everything. So are the people there sane enough that they won't press the button, or are you worried that they might press the button?
Sanity is at the big premium in Russia these days. There are not too many sane people. Putin is probably the more insane with each day. He is a man that it's impossible today to make any deals. Nobody can make any deals with Mr. Putin. He is no longer person. He's no longer trustworthy. He is a pathological liar. And therefore, one of two things must happen. Either he'll die, and hopefully sooner than later. I've said many times that I've started to do much more exercises and watching the diet. I'm a couple of years older than Putin, so I'm still hope to outlive him, and I would like to see his funerals. Maybe it's doable. Who knows? At least I have a hope to do that. So now I don't understand. For years, West didn't pay much attention to this hypersonic arms that Putin has developed, and they were talking about it. It's a joke. It's never going to fly. It's never going to do this or that. And all of a sudden now, all the experts saying that they cannot do anything about this type of missiles, and that's incredible, because now Putin even doesn't have to invade anybody. He
Right.
can just make a telephone call and say, "Look, I'll give you, say, 24 hours, and here's what I want you to do." And then he'll read, and then he'll say, "Well, it's no longer 24 hours, now 23 hours and 52 minutes. So please oblige."
We had a plane, the SR-71, which uses the same exact technology as these hypersonics.
Is that the Blackbird?
Yes, that's right. That's a Blackbird.
Okay.
It was taken out of commission for a while, and then was
No.
brought back in.
Blackbird is not a missile; it's a plane.
No.
Plane.
But it uses the exact same technology. Basically, what happens is it uses what they call a scramjet engine. The scramjet engine does this, Sasha. The faster it goes, the faster it can go. So basically, what happens is, as the air comes through the intake, that is ignited in the back. So basically, what happens is the more air that comes through, the more ignition happens on the back end. So as it goes faster and faster and faster, and that's why this SR-71, that's why I'm saying it's 3,000 miles an hour. The SR-71 was so fast that the Soviets couldn't shoot it down. They couldn't, because every time they tried to fire a missile at it, in fact, I remember I talked to a pilot one time in the SR-71, and he said, we used to laugh. We used to put the thing into afterburner, and then watch the missile fall behind us because basically it just run out of fuel or run out of speed or whatever else. So basically what he did was he miniaturized this into a missile and said, okay, now I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to fire it. When you the most vulnerable it is when it first comes off that rail. When it first comes off the rail, that's when you can hit it because it's subsonic at that point in time. But the minute that thing catches speed, it's gone. And like I said, and you're right, Sasha, you can't shoot it down. You can't track it. 3,000 miles an hour, good luck. Because if it's nap of the earth at 3,000 miles an hour, you cannot track that thing. Then it's going to come off the rail, and within minutes, it's going to hit its target. And it doesn't make it. It can be high explosive. It doesn't have to be nuclear. It doesn't have to be anything. The problem with putting a nuclear head on that is that when you're doing scramjet, when you're doing that type of heat, it will prematurely explode it. I mean, explode the explosive in the nuclear weapon. So you can't really put a nuclear weapon on those things. But you can put high explosive. You can put phosphorus. You can put like all kind of stuff on there, and when it hits, it totally destroys it.
You can fly
exactly
from
right.
New York to LA in less than an hour on the SR-71.
Pretty wild, huh? It broke so many records.
But they just don't have a lot of passenger seats, from what I understand.
Speaking of Los Angeles and everything, and I know we're getting ready to wrap up, there was a couple of other news items other than the war in the Ukraine, and that is definitely the major item. So I do agree that this should have covered the most of the time and everything. But definitely one of the things that I know you love talking about, Nick, and everything, is that actually after reaching an agreement with the labor unions, the Los Angeles United School District, the second largest public school district in the nation, has lifted its COVID-19 mask mandate starting next week. So union ratification processes have begun, and the new policy will be implemented no later than this Wednesday. So Wednesday, March 23rd, officials announced in a statement late Friday afternoon. So I'm wondering what you think about this. I mean, some people weren't wanting the kids to be masked in the first place, but they are now saying that they are going to unmask the kids, and the district will also make rapid tests available for all school-based staff and students before spring break. Staff and students will be required to notify the district of any positive antigen test results before returning to school. And the school district also said they're going to provide KN95 or N95 masks to any employee who requests them. So that's some of the things that they are having in that area. So I didn't know if you got any thoughts about that. And then I was going to bring up an incident involving one of our favorite corporations, Disney, because Disney apparently got in trouble for an incident that took place where some students were there doing a performance, and apparently the performance had some racist themes involving the Native American population and all of that. So they're catching a lot of flack because Disney says it regrets its performance at its Orlando theme park by a high school cheerleading squad after it received backlash for the routine's depiction of Native Americans. So a widely circulated video of the Port Neches Grove High School Indianettes from Texas shows the team dancing and chanting "Scalp 'em, Indians, scalp 'em," while performing moves that appear to appropriate Native American culture in a parade at Disney's Magic Kingdom theme park. And Disney spokesman Jackie Waller said, "The live performance in our park did not reflect our core values, and we regret it took place. It was not consistent with the audition tape the school provided, and we have immediately put measures in place so this is not repeated."
Yeah, and then they're so media is so sensitive stuff like that, and then tonight there'll be 20 murders on NCIS. So
Right.
come on, Mark. I mean, it's bull. Don't hand me this bull when all of a sudden the media supports murders, and they'll be on tonight. Go watch any major network. You're gonna see people getting shot and killed. Like, hey, it's
the footage from Ukraine.
I mean, the footage from Ukraine. Yeah,
yeah.
At least it's real. The thing is, Chris, these artificial, pushing violence on people in U.S. media is just absolutely incredible. But it bleeds, it leads, and it brings ratings up. With that, I'm going to have to go because I have.
Well, no, you got to go.
on the
Just
other
really
show.
quickly before you go, apparently, speaking of that, there were 24 shot over this weekend in New York City. So apparently 29 people were shot between Friday and Sunday in 24 separate incidences. So there are a lot of people now that
between the video game
have too many guns out there and things of that nature.
Yeah, between the video game industry and the entertainment industry in the United States training people on guns, you're getting what you asked for. Okay, in other words, the thing is, you get fed this this violence every day, and you don't get fed the other side. Now in China, which I'm very impressed with, what they're training people to do is to take over the United States using their science and technology. So with that, I will see you guys on the other shows. So
I'll see you on the other shows and all of that.
And
Just really quickly, Chris, what is your thoughts about that? Because apparently these 24 shootings took place ahead of New York Mayor's Eric Adams' planned announcement Monday about New York Police Department's new anti-gun unit. So apparently they're going to try to enforce getting some of these guns off the street. He's going to make an announcement about that, but then they were having a bunch of shootings at the same time.
Well, they've tried all kind of different technology to try to detect, muzzle flashes, things that so that they can put some proactivity behind this area. But I'll tell you, there's whenever people need guns and they need illegal guns, somehow that just magically appears somewhere along the line. So the bottom line is if I buy a pistol, if I buy a weapon, and that weapon is mine, and it's registered to me, and it's stolen, I can report it's stolen. But where it goes from there, I have no idea. The tracking of weapons in this country is just it's not done, and it's really difficult. Of course, I'm talking from a Republican. I don't want people to track my weapon. Put a little GPS in there, whatever else. But I'll tell you one thing: the Ukrainians, they love the fact that AK-47 is not tracked. Because otherwise they wouldn't have anything to fight with. I mean, it's they get these weapons and they're fighting in the streets, and a lot of them had personal weapons, so they just went out there with their personal weapons, and that's what they're fighting with. I mean,
that makes a lot of sense, and I
so
can definitely see that. Sasha, Nikki earlier mentioned a special. I know you usually do Tuesday and Friday. Are y'all doing something special later on this afternoon around the Ukraine situation, or did I mishear him?
It will be tomorrow at 11 o'clock.
That's what I thought. That he might have just missaid it, or he might have been talking about the other guests. I thought it was Tuesdays and Fridays, so I just was wondering when I heard him mention later today, and I'm going I think that's tomorrow, but just want to make sure that I was not supposed to be hearing about something that was going on in that sense. The other thing that I know people will be talking about over the next couple of weeks and everything, and we don't have to get to it now because we only got about a minute to go and everything, is definitely the confirmation of the Supreme Court, because that's starting this week. So we do know that a lot of people will be paying attention to that and whether there are enough votes to get her into the Supreme Court.
Democrats got it, man. She's in. This bipartisan thing they're hyping and all that. Bullcrap on that. Just vote her in, get her in, because they have the 51 votes, so they can easily get her in there as long as no Democrats, defect. She's in. There's no doubt in my mind. So I mean, that's fine. It's fine. It all works. Thomas is sick. He's got flu-like symptoms, whatever else. If he decides he's going to retire, Biden will get another shot at another Supreme Court justice. So there will be no more pack in the court. It's interesting how that pack in the court thing went away. So that's now they're hey, we don't need to pack the court. We'll just wait till people retire, and then we'll just put people in there. So
and the other things that are going on, just really quickly on the lighter notes. Well, one is lighter, the other is not light at all. But apparently, Texas firefighters have battled 175 fires in the past week that have burned nearly 95,000 acres. That's a whole lot of acres there in Texas and all of that. So they are definitely dealing with the forest fires. I knew it had hit California over several months and years and all of that. But apparently Texas is also now having to deal with some serious fires because, like I said, they've already burned nearly 95,000 acres. We could be heading to over 100,000 acres of burnt land in the largest state, and one of the largest states in the union and all of that. So definitely that's going to be interesting to see how that continues to go on. And of course, I am a fan, as I mentioned to Chris before, of March Madness, and we did have that going on, and we'll have more of that now that we're down to the Sweet 16. My team did horrible, but I am now rooting just because I like to root for the underdog for a team. Gonzaga, but I'm also got to go for a team named the Peacocks. I mean, you cannot go wrong with a team from New Jersey that's got their mascot as the Peacocks, and they're the 15th seed. So, like I said, they will probably not go much further into going into the next round, but who knows? Maybe they'll surprise me and win the whole thing. But definitely, I'm rooting for the underdogs as they are a 15th seed, and they actually have a good team. So, I'm gonna root for the guys from New Jersey.
Take
On
care,
that note,
guys.
we're going to get out of here. If y'all have any final thoughts, I'm going to bring up the spot, and I know that some of y'all will be heading over to Economics Monday and all along those lines. And of course, we do have Media Monday coming up at the noon hour and all along those lines. Otherwise, we'll be back here, all four of us, on tomorrow. And I can't remember if Steve told me he's coming back on Tuesday or Wednesday, but I do remember he did say he had a New York trip. So I was expecting him to be gone today and all along those lines.
Hope
Any
he's
last
safe.
words?
No, just I hope Steve's safe in New York with all those shootings.
Exactly. Same
Man.
here. Yeah. So we're getting ready to get on out of here, and we'll find out how his New York trip is when he comes back and all of that. Any last words from you, Sasha? Otherwise, I'm going to hit this lovely button.
Slava Ukraini.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yep. Slava Ukraine.
No
Yep.
doubt. And on that note, we're out of here.